You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Randy Brown takes on Nicolas Dalby this Saturday on the main card of UFC Fight Night Kansas City. And this is a really fun matchup in the welterweight division. Both of these guys have a lot of MMA experience. Randy Brown, been in the UFC for a long time, tons of UFC fights, fought a lot of really high-level competition, Bilal Muhammad, Jack Della Maddalena, Chaos Williams, Muslim Salikov, Zaleski dos Santos, so has a lot of high-level experience in his career and has a lot of fairly good wins, honestly, coming off of a loss to Brian Battle. Didn't look the best in that fight. I do think that he won. He lost by split decision, but I think you can argue that he won 2 of those rounds. Not necessarily a robbery, I would say, but I think he did enough to win that one. But he's 34 years old, 6'3", with a 78-inch reach, and 19-6 in his career. So very rangy guy, jiu-jitsu brown belt, feints really well, really good head movement, fights well at range, behind his, his teep kicks, his side kicks, his long jab, can keep a really good distance with his opponents with his long range attacks, which is tons of consequential power, has a lot of knockout power that we've seen in his career, recently getting a knockout over Muslim Salikov, who's really hard to put away. So moves in and out of the pocket very well, just all around a very rangy, technical striker, very big for the division. Is kind of susceptible to leg kicks though. He's got tiny legs, big upper body, and I think that'll come into play in this one, taking on Nicolas Dalby, who's a very good striker, great dexterity in his legs. So I think that's going to play a key part in this fight. But Nicolas Dalby's getting up there in age. He's 40 years old. He's 5'11" with a 74.5-inch reach. So going to be giving up about 4 inches in height and 3.5 inches in reach. So going to be interesting how this one plays out between these two guys on the feet. Nicolas Dalby recently coming off of a split decision loss to Rinat Fakhretdinov. Very competitive fight. Could have gone either way, which is very impressive because Rinat Fakhretdinov, a lot of power in the feet, very good fighter, very good grappling, just an all-around really good fighter. So to go to a split decision and be able to push the pace on that guy, is very impressive. He was supposed to fight Zaleski dos Santos back in November, had to pull out due to an undisclosed injury, which is concerning because, again, he is 40 years old. What type of injuries is he dealing with right now? Almost 30, about 31, 32 professional fights in his career. So kind of worrisome as to kind of where he stands health-wise. But he's also a jiu-jitsu brown belt, great leg kicks, snappy kicks, very fast head kicks, question mark kicks, kind of you name it, he's throwing it. I think he's going to be battering the legs of Randy Brown in this fight. He's very offensive with his striking, always pushing forward, pushing a very high pace, really smooth combinations, bouncy on his toes, always moving, not really one of those stationary guys who kind of plods forward. He's always kind of moving, looking for angles, goes all levels with his strikes, knees, body kicks, leg kicks, strikes. Again, very good 1-2 combinations, just a very, very smooth guy on the feet. Likes to work in the clinch as well, has really good knees from the clinch, and he's very, he's a big, powerful dude, so he can usually do pretty well in the clinch and controlling guys with his size and strength. I don't know how that'll play in this fight, just because Randy Brown's so tall, if he'll be able to, have as much success as he's had against smaller opponents in the past, but just pushes a ferocious pace. Some of the best cardio that I've seen at welterweight, and has a really weird breathing technique as well that kind of helps him control this cardio that I'm sure we'll see in this next one. So he pushed a really good pace against Gabriel Bonfim, ended up breaking him, and Gabriel Bonfim is, very high level, but was able to just really weaponize his cardio and go after him with just relentless pressure and kind of get him to eventually crumble towards the end of the second round. So gets stronger as the fight goes on, kind of builds. As his opponents are getting more tired, he's gaining, in steam, so to speak. So, and has really good takedown defense as well. We saw that against Rinat Fakhretdinov. He would be able to defend takedowns. If he did get taken down, he's usually pretty good at bouncing back up to his feet or getting to the cage and scrambling back up to where he wants to be. And he's not one of those guys that'll just settle on the ground and accept bottom position. He's always looking to get back up to his feet. And his cardio helps him with that, and he makes guys work. He makes guys work to keep him on the ground. And if they do get him to the ground, they're spending a lot of energy to get it there and to keep him there. And eventually he's going to get back up to the feet, and you're going to be sapped of your energy, is what I've seen in a lot of his fights. So I think Dalby gets this one done. And I know it's He's fighting the bigger guy, and he's 40 years old. I know Brown's younger, has the reach advantage. He's been more active. He most recently fought in December. Nicolas Dalby hasn't fought since June of last year. But Brown, in his last fight against Bryan Battle, he allowed himself to just get pushed back into the cage, held in the clinch, and Battle, even after missing weight by 4 pounds, was really able to kind of weaponize his cardio and push a very high pace on Brown that you could just tell he wasn't really comfortable with. He wasn't really managing the pressure very well. And I think Dalby will have the physicality advantage. I think he'll be the stronger guy in there. He'll have the cardio advantage despite being much older and less active. And Brown's used to fighting at range. He's used to kind of maintaining that range with his strikes and his kicks, and kind of fighting at a steady pace, a pace that he can manage, and he can kind of, poke at you, and get his combinations off. But Dalby's not going to give him that. He's going to be in his face from the get-go, mixing up his takedowns. I think he'll look to get his takedowns, look to grapple, look to push you against the fence, and really just wear on Brown, and not allow him to keep the distance where he's most effective. He's going to be in his face, gritty. He kind of makes his opponents race to the bottom, where it's like, you're going to get tired before me, and I know it, so I'm just going to push a ferocious pace against you, and see if you can keep up, see if you can keep your defenses up, see if you can keep firing back at me while I'm coming forward throwing bombs. And I don't think Randy Brown's going to be able to do that. I think he has to have that space. It has to be pretty and at range and kind of technical. And when it's not like that, like we saw against Bryan Battle, who, again, was still able to push, like I said, a great pace, even though he missed weight and obviously wasn't in the best shape in that fight. I do think Brown could potentially hurt Dalby, but he's just very durable. He recovers very well. We saw him get dropped really bad against Rinat Fakhretdinov in the first round, but was able to recover and come back. So I think Dalby gets this one done. I think that he can overwhelm Randy Brown, maybe get him out of there by strikes or just pure pressure. But I think if he can't get him out of there by knockout, I think he'll win rounds just by control, pressure, landing the better strikes, just wearing on Randy Brown in the clinch and winning rounds. So I'm going to go with Nicolas Dalby to get this one done at 40 years old against the much younger fighter. I think he can get it done within the distance with his pressure and striking, but if not, gets a decision. I don't know what the odds are here. Nicolas Dalby, let's see what Nicolas Dalby is. He's a plus 170 underdog against Randy Brown, who's minus 205. I get it. I can understand those odds. Randy Brown's been more active, has more of a reach advantage, younger guy, fought good competition as of late, but I think Nicolas Dalby is going to be a little bit too much for him. I think this time that he's taken off it is probably just to recover for some injuries that he's had, and I think he's going to come back refreshed and ready to give it one last push, being 40 years old. But because before that, he was on a really good run. Did lose to Tim Means back in 2021, which is not a great look. But if you give him that Fakhretdinov fight, which you can, puts him on a 5-fight winning streak heading into this fight at 40 years old. So hard to deny him, regardless of his age. He doesn't fight like he's 40 years old or look like he's 40 years old either. So going to go with Nicolas Dalby to get this one done. Thanks.